Weezer, The Obama Crisis, Chapter 2, Total War. Disclaimer: resemblance to persons living or dead means that they are a clone and also an enemy of Weezer, unless the aforementioned individual is a part of Weezer. While they were dancing, the clones of the Prime Ministers of Canada began plotting how they would find the remaining artifacts: the hash pipe and the Mexican fender. Rivers knew where the hash pipe was. It was down in Santa Monica, where trips are for kids. But they would have to hurry, or the Prime Ministers of Canada would get to it first. They had to make a decision: to go for the beans in Arizona and risk allowing the hash pipe to fall into the Canadian Prime Minister's hands, or go all the way to Santa Monica first, securing the hash pipe, but risking the beans. It was a tough decision, especially since they knew that the Mexican fender that was across the sea, in a small city in Japan. After they said all that, they finally went to sleep, because they'd been awake for a straight week at that point. When he fell asleep, Rivers dreamt of a big, fat Bulgarian man who constantly repeated, "Joe Biden, wake up." While this was occurring on a space rock known as the Moon, Fred of the viral YouTube show Fred joined their group. But Rivers put his foot down. Fred wasn't joining the group. He pulled out his Glock 17, and Fred was no more. Suddenly, he was shaken awake by Patrick and tried to clear his head of the confusing dream. "Quick," Brian called. Rivers saw that they were standing by a big black van, and Howard was in the driver's seat. "Some guy on Craigslist sold this to us for nothing but my social security number and a pound of weed. We're going to ride this to Santa Monica." Rivers stretched as he got up. The sun was high, presumably just before midday, as he enjoyed his last moments in the wilderness. As they drove in the van, Rivers began to think, why are we even in a van? I thought we had that big, convenient dinosaur that we could ride instead. He shook the thought away. It didn't matter. They had more important facts to focus on. The drive to Santa Monica would be a long one, with lots of opportunities to take a wrong turn. But luckily, Howard was driving, who was good with directions. They stopped at a BP gas station to get a snack while they heard a whirring sound. Rivers squinted in the distance to see what it was. It was Obama, and he was angry. "Crap," William Howard Taft muttered. "Go faster," Patrick yelled. The wind rushed past Obama's face, his face scrutinizing the fleeing Weezers. His calculating eyes squinted, and the sunlight glanced off. His fists clenched. "Get them," he whispered. "Fight to your death." The Canadian ministers rushed towards the car. It was a massive swarm. Rivers squinted, trying to ignore the screams coming from Matt Sharp. He knew there was no way out, unless he was to drive straight forward, directly into the crowd of prime ministers. He swerved the car 360 degrees, leaving a huge plume of dust in the air. "What are you doing?" Matt Sharp screamed. "The only thing that will work," Rivers said, with a confidence that he didn't feel. Howard leaned out the window and pulled out a pistol, shooting at the oncoming prime ministers. A couple of them stumbled, but for the most part, the bullets simply ricocheted off them. He should have known. They must have been genetically modified to be immune to gunfire. "You have to turn around. They're too strong. They'll destroy the van." But Rivers only shook his head. "You underestimate the power of Van Weezer." Once they were a few feet from the prime ministers, Obama realized what was about to happen. "Retreat!" he screamed, but it was too late. The car bumped over the robotic prime ministers, and Rivers laughed like a madman. It was working, but it still wasn't enough. Then Scott Schreiner spoke up. "I have something that can stop them. The only thing that can stop them." He threw the Tim Horton. As hundreds of Tim Hortons coupons flew out the window, the Prime Ministers of Canada jumped to grab them. They tore through the ranks and fought each other for an extra cup of free coffee. "Don't think my years of training were for nothing," Rivers yelled. Once again, they had outsmarted Robama. However, the remainder of the journey to Santa Monica was still ahead of them. Go! Rivers called as he did another 360. As he drove away, the menacing eyes of Robama stared at them with anger. Then, the tornado that, along with Robama, had destroyed the sandwich appeared, thirsty for blood. Rivers fumed with rage. It had taken so much for him, but it still wanted more. Rivers, yelled the tornado. I need your van. Can I borrow it? Yeah, sure. Just make sure to park it somewhere in Santa Monica after you're done. He tossed the keys. Alright, thanks, man. I owe you one. Now, the Weezers had no van. Would they get the artifact in time? Will they beat Robama to the sandwich? Luckily, Rivers had a realization. They had brought a large surfboard, so instead of taking their car to Santa Monica, Weezer could take their board. However, there was no water in the desert. But luckily for Weezer, the Hoover Dam had recently failed and a new wave was coming across the desert straight towards them. The river was foaming like a bottle of beer. The wave was coming, but Rivers had no fear. He waxed the board down so he'd go real fast. He waxed it down because it's really a blast. Taft and Brian Bell looked at the incoming wave apprehensively. I can't surf with you guys, right? Brian sighed. It would break a long-standing treaty that I've had with the alligators. If I go with you, there will be war. Rivers said, Well, I hope you have another solution, because you're going to have to swim. Swim or war? It's your choice. Brian chose war, and he hopped on the surfboard. In the distance, they heard gunfire. The alligators were coming. Cowabunga! Yelled the alligator commander Joe Biden, leading a fleet of alligators with the former monarchs of England riding them. How has he returned? Rivers exclaimed. Robama laughed, mockingly. Don't you understand? Joe Biden is my friend, and with the power of friendship, you can accomplish anything. Biden commanded the army of monarchs on alligators forward. They were gaining quickly on Weezer. If Weezer didn't do something fast, they were certain to be eaten by the alligators. They were no closer to Santa Monica either. If it took too long to defeat Biden, they would never get to the hash pipe first. There was no way they could fight them all. They needed to trick Joe Biden instead, and fast. Hey, Joe, yelled Rivers. Yeah, Cuomo. Joe, many liberals does it take to change a light bulb? Joe stood in confusion before Taft responded. None. They're too busy. Their gender. Joe Biden instantly disintegrated. Robama screamed with rage. No, not Biden, he screamed. The alligators, now leaderless, scurried off in several different directions. Robama yelled, I'll get you next time, Weezer. Weezer and Taft continued to surf along the wave. They were almost to Santa Monica, but so was Robama. Go on and kick me, yelled Brian Bell. What? Responded Taft. Go on and kick me. Send me to the hash pipe. Taft kicked Bell as far as he could. But then, the worst thing that could have happened. Bell landed onto the hash pipe at a Mach speed, crushing the hash pipe into 1,000 pieces. Oh no, they're gonna be so mad, Brian said as he tried to collect the pieces. Then, a man cloaked in black approached him. You guys are done for, he said in an ominous voice. What makes you say that? Bill asked, confused. When it broke, the power transferred to the next closest hash pipe, which just so happens to be in that pharmacy, which you have no way of knowing. Therefore, this will be a victory for us. The man broke into laughter from the thought of the utter defeat Bell must be feeling. But while he laughed, Brian had started running, and it was already too late when the man realized what had happened. He had fallen into the classic bad guy monologue. Robama had a trick up his sleeve, though. Allow me to introduce someone. Obama, activate. A robot Obama rose into the air. It's surely all life forms, it said in Obama's voice. With them hot on his tail, Brian had to be quick. He entered the pharmacy, and conveniently, there was only one hash pipe. Brian banged the hash pipe onto the counter, muttering, please be quick. But when he didn't get a reply, he realized that the guy at the counter was a baby. In fact, it looked uncannily similar to the baby on the airplane. I am Ra, the eldritch god of orphans, it spoke in a deep voice. When you took me from my family, I had no family. No one to go to. It was then I was showed the way to godhood by a man in the mist. He showed you the way. Now, it is time for my revenge. I'll destroy you, Weezer. You're doomed! Brian didn't have time for this. Look here, he said as he leaned into the counter. The baby was listening. You are a baby. You are a shiny thing. You like shiny things, eh? Here, I got these coins. He pulled out the change. I'll give you all of this if you give the man cloaked in black and robot Obama a good beating. Deal? The baby's eyes glowed electric blue, and it started to float. Deal. Brian grabbed the hash pipe and ran out of the pharmacy. He was becoming nervous because the rest of Weezer hadn't come to meet him. Behind him, a massive explosion could be heard. He turned around to see the baby rise from the shattered roof, heat waves distorting the view around the baby crackling with electricity. For I have made a deal, shall I deliver, the baby pronounced with a deep, reverberating voice. It raised its palm in the direction of Obama. A laser beamed from the baby's palms, disintegrating Obama and crippling Obama. Damn you, Weezer! Obama screamed in an absolute and utter rage. Just then, the rest of Weezer rode the last of the Hoover Dam wave into Santa Monica. However, they couldn't stay for long, as they needed to find a way into Arizona to get the pork and beans, as King Edward VIII hadn't gotten back yet. Then, they realized their mistake. They were so focused on the floating baby that they didn't even realize the open manhole. They all fell in the ominous black depth. If things weren't bad enough, Rivers had just received a text. I was with the robots the whole time. You just got trolled, lol. King Edward VIII. As they crouched in the dark, contemplating, some rumbling, sloshing sounds started echoing. Could it be the alligator army retreating into the sewer after having been defeated in the desert? It was, and they were angry. They had been humiliated in the fight, and they were out for blood. King George III had taken the role as leader, at the front of the charge. Such a continuous change of bad luck had demoralized Rivers, and now he grimly wondered if this would be the end. But then he saw something. A glint against black. He squinted hard. Could it be King Edward VIII who just sent him the text? From behind, the monarch leveled his pistol directly at the head of King George III. Then, he pulled the trigger. A bang was heard throughout the chamber. King George fell from the crocodile, dead before hitting the ground. He saved us, Rivers said in a shocked voice. King Edward really was on their side. Once again, the cavalry of alligators fell into chaos and confusion. King Edward VIII rode forward with his chest puffed up. Go find Biden, he announced. He could still be alive. The alligators, still disorganized, scrambled away. Then, he got off the crocodile and pulled off his mask. It was Martin Van Buren. My name is Martin Van Buren, and I want to join you. Rivers, Taft, and the rest looked at each other. But before they could speak, Taft spoke. No, You suck, and no one even cares about you. There's only enough space for one president in Weezer, and that's me. Rivers and the rest simply nodded in agreement. Martin Van Buren began to cry, and slowly slogged his way out of the sewer, while still dressed as King Edward VIII. They awkwardly climbed up a convenient ladder that led to the surface, not really knowing what to say. Meanwhile, Brian finally gave the baby the change. "Could you stick around, maybe?" he tried. The baby shook its head. "I might see you again, but I've got things to do." Then the baby flew away. Brian wouldn't take no for an answer. He lifted his arms up and forced the baby back down to the ground. "Not so fast," he sneered at the baby. The baby turned to him, blue eyes intense. "You will not command me." A demonic deep growl came, as if 100 men talked in unison in their deepest voice. With the shock, Brian was temporarily blinded, and his head began to spin. But that couldn't stop him. "You're gonna have to kill me before I let you go." Then, right when he thought he was about to lose consciousness, Brian saw something. A vision of a rising angel. And he was the only one praying. He flew up so high, his purple majesty displaying, and reaching a higher place that no one else could make a claim in. He was on the moon.